Welcome to the Making of Madrid, a podcast about life in Madrid, covering history, culture, food, and much more. The show is presented by me, Felicity Hughes. I'm a tour guide and freelance writer based in Madrid, and I've been writing a blog about the city for many, many years, and this has now evolved into a podcast. The theme of the podcast today is Christmas, or Navidad, as people call it here in Spain. The reason why I decided to do this a little bit ahead of time is that I met a lovely woman in the swimming pool. Well, she was working at the counter in the swimming pool, and she was very chatty, and she asked me where I lived. And when she heard that I lived in Madrid, her eyes just lit up, and she said she was planning a trip and wanted to go and see the Christmas markets and the illuminations. And she had so many questions that I thought, well, I ought to turn this into a podcast and give you all the lowdown on Christmas in Madrid. One of the things I should say, though, if you're thinking of coming, is to give you a couple of warnings. So one thing is the center of town gets incredibly crowded during the Christmas season with people buying their presents. So if you're uncomfortable with crowds, I don't particularly recommend it. And the other thing is, as it's peak season and a lot of people are flying in to see the Christmas markets on the weekends, the hotel prices go up. So those two combined things are something to bear in mind if you're planning a trip. However, we do indeed have Christmas markets. And the biggest and most beautiful one is in the historic Plaza Mayor, which is a historic square in the center of Madrid, the place where you would have markets and festivals. And this still holds true to this day with the Christmas markets and a big Christmas tree. I'm afraid Spanish Christmas trees don't tend to be like Christmas trees you might see in Northern Europe. They don't go in for the big natural tree. They go in for the big illuminated sort of cone. And actually, that's a lot better because let's face it, we shouldn't really be chopping down trees just for Christmas. So yeah, we like a little bit of bling in Madrid, and you'll definitely get lots of that. So you've got your Christmas markets. I should mention the other two ones. There's one in Plaza España and another one in Plaza de Colón. But you can visit them at any point, pretty much from now onwards. They'll be open. They mostly sell Christmas decorations and silly hats. But a new thing that they've started to sell with the Christmas decorations is the caganer. And the caganer is a tradition that comes from Catalonia, Valencia, that kind of area. And no one is quite sure of the provenance of this figure, but it's certainly become a very popular one throughout the country lately. And the caganer is basically someone taking a poop. So it's a figure. The traditional ones are of a man with his trousers around his ankles taking a poo. And in recent years, this has become a sort of jokey item, and you'll often find them caganers in the form of famous people. So you'll definitely find Biden or Trump. And in terms of Spanish figures, you'll probably see Rosalia, the pop star. She's, of course, hugely popular in Spain, but also slightly controversial because she has been accused of cultural appropriation of Gitano or gypsy culture, that's flamenco culture. Caganes are a lot of fun in any case. People buy them to put them in their nativity scenes, and so they've now turned up in the Christmas markets. But if you particularly want to go and buy one as a souvenir, there's a shop selling them on the Calle Mayor at number 82, and it sells them all year round. So they make a great sort of funny Christmas present for people. The nativity scene you're probably picturing is not quite the same in Spain as it is in the English language speaking world. So we're all used to the baby Jesus, the three kings, Mary, Joseph, a few angels, but that's pretty low key. Here in Spain, nativity scenes are big. In fact, they're enormous. My husband's uncle had one in his house that sort of took up half the room. They really go huge, and they're pretty much a Christmas village surrounding the little manger and the nativity. So you've got lots and lots of stuff going on. They're really lively. You usually have Romans. You have all kinds of things, and you have the caganer in there, which is a little bit like a Spot the Where's Wally situation. So that's another really great thing to go and do in Madrid, is go and see a Belén or a nativity scene. I wrote a piece about this in my blog quite a while ago, and I'll put a link again in the blog post about this podcast to that piece. And in it, you can find out all the different places where you can go and see nativity scenes. There's definitely one in the town hall, but they're all over the city. You often find them in markets as well. And they're really quite something, because some of them even have like flowing streams, water wheels, all kinds of stuff, all the bells and whistles. So it's a lot of fun. That tradition was actually introduced to Spain from Naples by our most popular ever king. So if you're in Sol, you can see a statue of this king. He's Carlos III, or Charles III. He was the very most popular king that we've ever had in Spain, because he was quite a wise, enlightened ruler. And he ruled Spain in the 1700s, but he had ruled Naples before that. And they also remember him as a very, very wise king. I visited Naples and I could see his name all over the place. It seemed like he was much loved. He was wise in terms of the fact that he was humble, and he always had lots of advisors helping him govern. And he learned his lessons. So he learned that nativity scenes were incredibly popular. His wife actually introduced them, but he sort of kept it all going. And the other thing that he introduced to Spain from Naples is the lottery, which of course is another massive, massive thing in Spain for Christmas. So the Christmas lottery is called El Gordo, and it's drawn on the 22nd of December. And most Spaniards will buy tickets, and they'll often buy a collection of tickets with a group. So everybody's kind of invested and they get really, really excited. They gather outside the Teatro Real on the 22nd of December. Some people queue really, really early because you can get in for free to see the numbers being drawn, but places are limited. And traditionally, the pupils of San Ildefonso School, which is out in La Latina, they come into the Teatro Real to call out the winning numbers. And the draw is huge. Last year, I think the prize money was 2.5 million. And ticket sales can be 3.3 billion euros. This big jackpot prize money can be won by many, many ticket holders, so it's usually divided up. But everyone gets really excited, and it's a huge thing that sort of brings people together. I actually have never bought a ticket myself, but perhaps I should this year and try my luck. Going back to things that you can actually do in Madrid, if you're coming with kids, there are a couple of things that I really, really recommend. So one of them is called Corti Ilandia. And if you've never been to Spain before, I should tell you that there is a big department store in Spain called El Corte Inglés. And that's really popular with lots of people. And every year on the facade near Callao, there is a sort of Christmas wonderland that on the hour comes to life because it's full of animated figurines that dance around to happy Christmas tunes. Now, I've got two nieces, so of course they have been to go and see it. But my parents-in-law, I didn't actually go because the crowds put me off. My parents-in-law told me it was an absolute nightmare to get through the crowds. But I have to say that the girls were absolutely delighted. If crowds are not your thing, I recommend instead getting tickets to a winter wonderland that's a little way out of central Madrid. You get a train on the cercanías to a town called Torrejón de Ardoz. And you need to do a little bit of pre-planning to buy your tickets in advance. So you buy your tickets to the Winter Wonderland, and that costs €3 to enter. I've been myself, and even though I'm not a little kid, and I went with adults, I had an absolute blast. It's really lots of fun. They have a special Christmas gate that, again, on the hour does this amazing illumination display, and you're just walking through sort of slightly kitsch winter wonderland with fairground rides, all the bells and whistles. I just think for me, I think if you're a parent, you would have a much better time in Torrejón de Ardoz than the sort of short but sweet, but very, very crowded Corte Inlandia. My other big travel tip is that if you're planning to visit Madrid for Christmas, I would go back home on Christmas Eve in the morning. So any later and you're going to be disappointed because shops close midday. And the reason for this is that the big family event is not on Christmas Day in Spain, but Christmas Eve. So you have a big family meal in the evening, quite late, that begins about 9 or 10 p.m. and carries on until beyond midnight. I, of course, do this because my husband's Spanish. So some years I go back to the UK. Other years I stay in Spain and have Christmas with the family. And the kind of food that you would eat is not the sort of thing that I would eat in the UK. So you generally have a lot of prawns, lovely sliced jamon, truffles, all kinds of nice treats, but very, very different from Christmas in the UK. The other big difference, of course, is gifts for children. Now, it used to be that children didn't get anything on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, but of course, there's an increasing Americanization of Spanish culture, and children began to feel as if they were missing out. This is an incredibly difficult issue for Spanish parents because actually children do get presents in Spain, but they get presents on January the 6th during the Epiphany or Three Kings Day when gifts are traditionally exchanged. However, all Spanish children now know about Santa, and they're kind of like, well, why isn't Santa coming to visit us? So Spanish parents have to give gifts on 2 occasions during Christmas time, and each family has a different policy. I've spoken to many parents about this issue. Some of them are more generous at Christmas, some are more generous on Three Kings Days. Some of them say, okay, gifts from the relatives at Christmas, gifts from the parents on Three Kings Day. They manage it all differently, but they definitely bring in Santa. And one Christmas Eve, it was really cute. We had Santa come and visit us. It was very exciting. He came after midnight. It was actually my husband's cousin David who snuck away and got dressed up as Santa and went outside, rang the doorbell, and gave the gifts to the little girls. Of course, this is not traditionally how we would do it in the UK. I've never personally sort of met Santa giving me gifts, but they're allowed to interpret it how they will because it's not really that traditional here. In any case, I was saying that Three Kings Day is the big deal. And if you have kids, actually, this is a really great time to visit. So if you visit on the day before Three Kings Day, there's a ginormous parade going through the center of Madrid where the three kings are dressed up and they're riding this flamboyant carriage. There's loads of floats coming behind them and they throw sweets into the crowd. It's tons and tons of fun. There are, in fact, more than one parade. There's more than one parade. There are several in different districts. So I tend to go to my local one because the one in central Madrid can be quite crowded, but it's really lots of fun. Everyone has lots of fun trying to kind of catch the candy as it's flying midair. And you end up at the town hall. So in my case, I end up at Usera town hall, but you could end up at Cibeles, which is the town hall in central Madrid. And children give their wish lists to Santa, well, to the three kings, sorry, not Santa. And then a massive fireworks display goes off ahead. It's really quite something. If you want more information about Three Kings Day, check out my post. Again, I'll give a link to that in the blog post that I make off the back of this podcast. And the very last thing I have to talk to you about in terms of Christmas traditions is the Roscón de Reyes. That's a little bit difficult for me to roll my R's in that way. Roscón de Reyes. The Roscón de Reyes is lovely. It's looks a bit like a giant donut, and it's a kind of brioche, like a sweet cake, that's topped with candied fruit and filled with fresh cream, and it's really, really delicious. It's a tradition, I think, that sort of goes back to ancient Roman festivals like Saturnalia. And it used to be that they had a hava bean or a fava bean inside that the person who found it would be named King of Kings for the day. And that meant that they would have prosperity and good luck for the year to come. This bean has now transformed into a little figurine, and the person who finds it, depending on where you are in Spain, either has good luck and prosperity or has to buy the cake the next year. So I prefer to interpret it in the former way, but people kind of argue over this and, say that all the people who don't get it are like, oh, no, that means you have to pay. If you would like to buy a Roscón de Reyes, you can buy them pretty much anywhere. I've even had the ones sold by Dia supermarket, and they're not bad. But the very best are sold in Antigua Pastelería del Pozo. This pastry shop, the pastry shop of the Well, is in central Madrid, and queues go around the block because it's meant to be absolutely fantastic. If you want to read a little bit more about that, you can read a blog post that I wrote about the oldest shops in Madrid. And you can find out more information about that pasteleria or pastry shop. So that about wraps up my lowdown on Christmas in Madrid. If you're thinking of coming, the one thing I would say that you should do is take a ride on the Naveluz bus. This bus will kind of give you a little bit of an overview as soon as you sort of hit the ground, and you'll be able to look at all the different areas of the city lit up with their Christmas lights. The tickets cost about €7, but you get to be on the top deck of the bus and it's a real blast. It's something that I've kind of incorporated into my Christmas traditions. And again, I'll give a link to that in the main blog post about Christmas in Madrid. In any case, I'll wrap this up right now and wish you a Feliz Navidad or Happy Christmas and a very prosperous New Year. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.